few years ago, while I was visiting my dad up in Minnesota for the summer, I had one of the most terrifying paranormal encounters ever. Keep in mind the walls are really thin in the house, so I would have known if someone was walking around outside my bedroom. I slept by myself in the guest bedroom, and to the right of the bed is an open closet with a mirror facing me, and the door is at the foot of the bed. I remember waking up at 2:54 a.m. I wasn't able to sleep, so I decided to listen to music on my phone, but the battery was only at 4%. So I, being the lazy guy I am, decided to stay in bed and suffer in boredom, rather than reach over a couple feet to charge my phone. After I rolled to the other side of the bed and closed my eyes, I heard the doorknob jiggling, like someone desperately trying to get in. Immediately I opened my eyes and saw the doorknob stop jiggling, and the door slowly open a few inches. I thought my older brother was trying to scare me, so I closed my eyes again. But I heard footsteps of a heavy person walk by the foot of the bed and stop in the middle of the room. My eyes opened again on instinct, and I looked back at the door and saw that it was only open a few inches. Then this horrifying feeling of being watched hits my back, and I close my eyes again, slowly covering my head and shoulders with my blanket. After several minutes of being paralyzed in fear, I got the courage to take my head out of the blanket and opened my eyes and looked into the mirror in the closet next to my bed. And what I saw scared the hell out of me. A silhouette of a large man was standing directly next to my bed. His upper body was crouched, as if he were observing me, and his right arm looked like it was reaching out to me. I patted around a half-foot radius in front of my body for my cell phone and accidentally pressed play. The song that played was Taylor Swift's Love Story. I looked back in the mirror and saw that it was gone. I was scared it had come back, so I played the song all night long until I managed to fall back asleep again. My junior year of college, I moved into a house with 4 people on the first floor, 5 on the second floor, and 2 people upstairs who we didn't really talk to. The house was very old, but seemed normal enough, until I went down to the basement for the first time. There was a washing machine and dryer that never worked, so we had no real reason to ever go down there except for parties. The weird part was this room towards the back of the basement that was always locked, and just gave me an overwhelming sense of fear every time I was down there. Well, apparently, when my roommates first moved in, that room wasn't locked. One of the girls was looking around and found several human teeth and what she described as strange tools. Not long after, the landlord, who had only recently purchased the house, locked the door, and it was never opened again. Fast forward a few months. I had recently woken up from a nap and was cooking some food on the stove, and I was the only person on our floor. Suddenly, the hallway light to my left turns off. I just shrugged it off, assuming the light had burned out. Then it turned back on. The light switch for that light was in the stairwell on the other side of the closed door. So I waited a minute, and the light turned off again. I quickly ran over to the door and opened it, thinking someone had been messing with me, or something. No one was there. I walked downstairs, and there was nobody on the floor either. Now I'm a little freaked out, but I still just tell myself that it must be an electrical problem. So I go back to the stove. Immediately the light goes on and off again. I just kind of stood there for a few seconds. Then the music started. It was coming from the living room, which is right next to the kitchen. Now I'm feeling relieved, thinking someone is home after all. I walk into the living room, and there's a laptop sitting on the coffee table connected to some speakers. I slowly walk towards the speakers when I realized the laptop wasn't even turned on. I unplugged the speakers and the music stopped. I really wish I could remember what song it was, but I had other things on my mind at that point. Then I heard a noise and realized that the television was on one of those static channels just like in the scary movies. That was when the chill sunk in. I turned off the stove, walked down the stairs, got in my car, and drove far away. A few weeks later, I told my roommates what had happened, hoping that someone would confess that this was a very elaborate prank that they had pulled. Instead, everyone kind of got quiet, and one by one started admitting weird things had happened to them too. One of the girls said she would often wake up in the middle of the night and hear voices coming from her closet, and sometimes the hangers would be moving like something just bumped into them. Another friend said he often heard noises, like footsteps above him. When he walked upstairs, nobody was there. Another guy told me he had woken up in the middle of the night when he was sleeping on the couch to a dark figure peering down at him from the stairs above, just staring at him before it walked back up the stairwell. Okay, so when I was about 13, I often went over to my best friend's house, who directly lived next door to me. It didn't really matter what time of day or night it was. And the nice thing about it was his stepmom and dad were excellent friends with my dad. So I would just walk over to his house every day and play GameCube and whatnot with him until I decided to go home. Sometimes I would just spend the night. Well, one night around 2 a.m., I walked out of my back door, and the back of my friend's house is a field that's mostly full of weeds. I'm walking over there, and all of a sudden I get a chill and goosebumps. I really didn't think much of it, but after about 20 steps or so, I look to the field and see a silhouette of a person, and it seemed that this person was leaning along my neighbor's fence. I get really nervous and begin to panic, acting like I don't see him. After about another 10 feet, I look over once again, and the silhouette is now glowing bright white. And I don't know what happened, but it drew me closer to it. So much so that I changed the way I was walking, and I started to head towards it. After about 15 feet, I hear a really deep, terrifying laugh, and the silhouette changes shapes. And I swear on my life, I came out of this trance it had put me in, when I saw what looked like horns were coming out of its head. So I started to panic, almost in tears just from fear, and sprint towards my friend's house. After about 2 seconds of running, it sounds like it was chasing me. But when I turned around, I didn't see it. When I turned back around, it was in front of my friend's house, staring into the window and making the same laughing as before. So I'm completely lost as to what to do. So I run to his parents' car, because they would leave the garage door opener inside the car under the seat. I didn't really understand why they did it, but they did. As I open the garage door, I hear panting and footsteps getting closer and closer. When I go to slip under the garage door, while it was still opening, something grabbed me, or it felt like it did. I started to scream, mainly because I thought I was going to die. After about 2 seconds of this, a bright light flashed, and I promised I saw an angel, or what looked like one, in the lot next to my house. I got up as fast as I could and hit the garage door button again. But the silhouette of what seemed to be an angel suddenly made me feel very calm. I told my friend what had happened, and I thought he would just call me a liar, or just plain dumb for even thinking I saw what I did. But he told me he'd seen a lot of things that he really couldn't explain in my lot at night, and even outside his window. And when he saw them, he just wouldn't move, and he would close his eyes. And the object he was describing sounded just like what I had seen. But not even 2 hours later, we were playing a movie, and we hear a scratch behind us. We look behind us and see a silhouette, and all of a sudden I realize it's the same thing he saw outside his window, and the same thing I had seen in the lot next to my house. He instantly said, "Dude, don't move." So I trusted him, while I whispered to him that this is what I saw earlier. He said this is the thing that he had been seeing for months now. After about a minute of us not moving, the silhouette looking at us banged on the glass. We started to freak out and ran into his living room, scared out of our minds. At this point, we had no idea what to do. But he started to cry, thinking it was after him and me, and he was convinced that we were going to die. All of a sudden, the same silhouette is in the hallway that leads to the living room. We both start screaming and yelling for our parents, and we run to the couch and hide under the blankets. After about a minute of us crying and freaking out, his dad walks out and asks what all the fuss is about, and tells us it's almost 5 a.m. We explained to him what's happened, and he said it was just our imaginations. About a month after this whole thing happened, my friend called me at roughly 2 a.m. and said he saw a lot of black things walking around my house. I instantly woke up my dad and told him that someone was outside. He went out and saw nothing, but I went back to my room and saw the silhouette right outside my window. I decided to sleep in his room because I was so scared. I realized that my friend was on the phone when I told my dad. I went back to the phone and he's screaming for his parents. He picks up the phone and says, "Dude, I think they're in my house." After seconds, I hear banging on his door. He begins to scream louder and louder. Then, after about 2 minutes of banging, his parents come in and ask him if he's okay. A week later, they moved out of the house. Not saying why or anything, but me and my friend are still best buds to this day. And I wouldn't stop asking him to tell me what happened till about 2 months ago, when I told him I saw the silhouette again outside of my house. I probably should have said that we moved into his house about a month and a half after they moved, because it was a bigger house, and it was on the market for a good price. My dad had basically given me the house as a present about a year ago, and didn't really care as long as I took care of it. Anyways, after I told him that, he told me exactly what happened, and said that if it gets worse, I need to do something about it. He told me that there were black outlines of people all around his house, and his dad and mom both knew what was going on, but didn't want to scare him. He told me that it felt like someone was standing on his shoulder and something was holding his feet, almost like they were trying to drag him into the floor. His parents then came in and it all stopped. And to this day, I still see the silhouette of something every now and then. I don't know if it's my mind playing tricks on me, but it still does scare the hell out of me. And I have no idea what we saw that night. And after that, I tried everything on finding out what it was, and there's nothing out there that says anything about it. But I just needed to share my experience.